I'm Kimberly Arteche. I am one of the MFA candidates. So one of the huge themes in my work is epistemology, right? So this is the study of knowledge, or how we know what we know, right? So growing up as a Filipino American in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., I always had a lot of questions, like, why don't I look like anyone else in our neighborhood? Why do people always think I'm Chinese or Hawaiian? Why aren't there other Filipinos like us in our neighborhood, right? So the first epistemological method that I unknowingly learned from was through oral traditions. My mother would tell me stories about our family and about her life in the Philippines. Through these stories, I learned morals, values, and about our heritage. My mom would tell me stories like, "Anak, you know, when we were poor in Munting Tubig, we only had one fish to share amongst my many siblings. We had to share that one fish and spread it across all of our rice. That's why you have to finish all your rice. That's why you have to be grateful for all the food that you have," right? My tita Edith would always tell me stories about their ancestral home in the Philippines and the big sampalok tree right outside of her window that she used to gaze out of at night. It was through these stories that I got glimpses into a past that I wasn't sure I would ever really be a part of. So growing up in the 1990s, right in the boom of everyone installing AOL into their home PCs, it completely changed the way that we learned. With a few clicks and a few minutes of waiting through buzzes and screeching of dial-up connections, there was a wealth of knowledge that was just waiting to be tapped into. I was finally able to look up what a bahay kubo looked like. It was really similar to the house my tita Edith always described to me. I was finally able to look at images of what the Philippines look like, what our rhythms are, and what dances our people dance to. With online communities like Asian Avenue, I was able to connect with other folks who were searching for the shared experience of not feeling like you were meant to be somewhere. The advent of Skype and Facebook completely changed how diasporic families like mine interfaced with our families back at home. Instantly, we were able to like photos of the baptisms of our godchildren. I was able to see photos of my recently deceased Tito Luming, his burial ceremony, and the beautiful grave that they placed him in. This new epistemological method is so ingrained into today's society that we carry its tools in our pockets every day. I realized that a great deal of what I know about myself, my identity as a Filipino American, and what I knew about my family in the Philippines was heavily intersected by these two ways of knowing: oral traditions and internet searches. This most recent project came along during a conversation I was having with my mother about my mother, her mother, my nanay, right? She was telling me about how my nanay used to sell kulambo, or mosquito nets. So she used to buy the raw materials, weave them together, sew them together, and she and her husband would go from town to town selling them. And really casually during this conversation, my mom was like, "Yeah, I know how to weave." I'm like, "Mom, how do you not tell me that you know how to weave? Like, I'm the only artist in our family and you're like withholding all this information, right?" She's like, "Yeah, everyone in our town learned how to weave. There's a habihan in Munting Tubig." So my mother told me that there was this really strong tradition of female weavers in her province. And she instructed me to go onto this Facebook page and to look up all of the pictures that are being updated very regularly. So there was this really strange mix of like an oral tradition and internet fact-checking that happened. So with this series of work, I use the pixel as a metaphor for the fact that my relationship with my identity, my family, and my heritage has always been mediated by technology. The large scale of the pixelated images is intended to cause a critical movement for the viewer. I want the viewer to have a different experience when they're up close to the work and far away from the work. When standing up close, it becomes about color, texture, and form. And the further you step away, the clearer the image gets, and you start to realize what the figure is. This critical movement is similar to my relationship with the Philippines. Here in the US, I'm seen as a Filipino. But when I go back to the Philippines, it's very obvious that I'm American, from the way that I dress, to the way that I speak, to the accent when I speak Tagalog. I've never completely belonged in one place. It's always been about moving back and forth or being in between. I wanted to evoke for the viewers the same sense of fluctuation and fleeting memory that I have. So these pieces are to honor the women ancestors in my life who have led me here, my mother, my aunts, my grandmothers, and regardless of how far I am from them, they're always guiding me.